Did you know that Japan is home to the world's oldest company, established over 1400 years ago? This is just one testament to Japan's rich and enduring history. Our journey begins in the mists of time, in Japan's prehistoric period. Long before skyscrapers and bullet trains, during the Jomon period, which began around 14,000 years ago, the Japanese archipelago was inhabited by hunter-gatherers. These people were the first to develop pottery, creating cord-marked vessels that are among the oldest in the world. Fast forward a few thousand years and we reach the Yayoi period, a time of significant change and progress. It was during this era, around 300 BC, that wet rice cultivation was introduced to Japan from the Asian continent. This development, along with the use of bronze and iron, marked a shift from a hunter-gatherer society to an agrarian one. As these communities grew and flourished, social classes began to form and the foundations for a state were laid. This led to the establishment of the Yamato state around the 3rd century AD. The Yamato period saw the advent of a centralized government, with the Yamato court at its helm, and the beginnings of a distinctly Japanese culture and identity. One of the most significant events of this time was the introduction of Buddhism in the 6th century AD. Imported from Korea, this religion was initially met with resistance but eventually gained acceptance and profoundly influenced the country's culture, philosophy, and art. It's fascinating to think of these times when Japan was a world away from the technologically advanced nation we know today. Yet these early periods laid the groundwork for what was to come. As the Yamato state solidified its power, Japan began to step onto the world stage, ready for a new era of cultural and political development. With the dawn of the Asuka and Nara periods, Japan was about to experience a cultural renaissance unlike any before. This was a period of great enlightenment, when the land of the rising sun started to truly shine. During this time, Chinese culture made a significant impact on Japan, shaping its philosophy, religion, art, and even its political structure. Buddhist teachings from China were embraced and temples were built, becoming centers of culture and learning. The influence of China can also be seen in the establishment of the capital at Nara, modeled after Chang'an, the Chinese capital. But the Japanese didn't just borrow, they adapted and transformed what they absorbed, creating something uniquely their own. This is particularly evident in the development of the Japanese writing system. The Chinese characters, or kanji, were adapted to fit the Japanese language, leading to the creation of hiragana and katakana, the two native syllabaries that, along with kanji, make up the Japanese writing system we know today. The flowering of Japanese literature and arts truly blossomed during the Heian period. Named after the new capital, Heian-kyo, now known as Kyoto, this period is considered the pinnacle of the Japanese imperial court and noted for its art, especially literature and poetry. The world's first novel, The Tale of Genji, was penned during this period by a woman named Murasaki Shikibu. It's a richly detailed account of courtly life, love, and politics, and remains a classic to this day. Art and aesthetics were deeply valued. The Heian period is remembered for its culture of elegance and refinement. Courtly pastimes included poetry contests, musical recitals, and the appreciation of incense. The aristocrats of the time developed an aesthetic principle called mono no aware, a sensitivity to the transience of beauty, which permeates much of Japanese art and literature. The tranquility of the Heian period, however, couldn't last forever, and Japan was about to be plunged into centuries of military rule. Enter the samurai, Japan's legendary warriors, who would dominate the country's political landscape for the next 700 years. In the 12th century, the Kamakura period marked the rise of the warrior class. The samurai, with their formidable armor and razor-sharp swords, became the stewards of law and order. At the helm was the shogun, a military dictator who wielded immense power. This marked the establishment of the shogunate, a system that would remain in place for centuries, guiding the nation through periods of both peace and conflict. As we move into the Muromachi period, Zen Buddhism begins to permeate samurai culture. The teachings of Zen, emphasizing mindfulness and the transience of life, resonated deeply with these warriors. The tea ceremony, no theater, and the art of ink painting, all hallmarks of Japanese culture today, were heavily influenced during this time. The Azuchi Momoyama period, though brief, played a crucial role in shaping Japan's future. Two powerful daimyos, or feudal lords, emerged: Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Nobunaga, an ambitious leader with a flair for innovation, began the process of unifying Japan. But it was Hideyoshi who completed this monumental task, ushering in a period of peace after many years of civil war. Yet the samurai era was not just about warfare and political power struggles. It was a time of cultural evolution and philosophical introspection. The samurai lived by the code of Bushido, the way of the warrior, which emphasized loyalty, self-discipline, and respect. These values, deeply rooted in the samurai era, continue to influence Japanese society today. The era of the samurai was a time of great change, but as the 17th century dawned, Japan was about to close its doors to the outside world. The stage was set for a period of isolation that would last for more than 200 years, shaping the land of the rising sun in ways that no one could have anticipated. In an era known as Sakoku, Japan turned inwards, shutting itself off from the rest of the world for over 2 centuries. This period, also known as the Edo era, began in the early 17th century and was marked by a strict policy of isolation. The Tokugawa shogunate, the ruling power of the time, sought to solidify its control over the country. To achieve this, they enforced a policy of national seclusion, essentially closing Japan's doors to the outside world. Trade was restricted, foreign travel was prohibited, and Christianity, brought by Western missionaries, was banned. Yet within these self-imposed boundaries, Japan was far from stagnant. On the contrary, the Edo period was a time of stability and growth. With no external conflicts to worry about, the country was able to focus on its internal development. There was a significant advancement in the arts, literature, and theater. Kabuki and ukiyo-e, forms of theater and art that are still celebrated today, flourished during this period. However, the world outside was changing rapidly, and eventually Japan had to change with it. The arrival of American Commodore Matthew Perry in the mid-19th century signaled the end of Japan's isolation. With the signing of the Treaty of Kanagawa, Japan was forced to open its ports to foreign trade. This marked the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, a period of rapid modernization and westernization. Japan, in an astonishingly short period, transformed itself from a feudal society into a modern industrial state. The Meiji government encouraged the adoption of Western technology, education, and political systems. They built railroads, established a national education system, and restructured the government, turning Japan into a constitutional monarchy. This period of intense transformation wasn't without its challenges, but Japan met these head-on, adapting and learning at a pace few could match. From a closed-off nation, Japan emerged as a world power, setting the stage for a tumultuous 20th century. The 20th century brought great challenges and changes for Japan, shaping the country we know today. As we delve into this era, we find ourselves in the midst of the Taisho democracy, a period marked by increased political participation and a burgeoning democratic climate. However, this was a short-lived era, soon replaced by the militarism of the Showa period. The Showa period, named after Emperor Hirohito's reign, was a time of aggressive expansion and militarization. World War II was a defining event of this period, casting a long and dark shadow over the nation. Japan's involvement in the war led to catastrophic consequences, and ultimately, its surrender in 1945. Yet in the ashes of devastation, a new Japan rose, heralding an era of recovery and growth. The post-war period was marked by a series of reforms, from political restructuring to economic rebuilding. These changes were not without their struggles, but they paved the way for what is often referred to as the Japanese economic miracle. This miracle was a rapid period of economic growth between 1950 and the early 70s. Japan transformed from a war-torn nation into the world's second-largest economy, a position it held for more than 4 decades. Industries such as automobile manufacturing and electronics flourished, and Japanese products gained global recognition for their quality and innovation. Today, Japan stands as a global powerhouse, a leader in technology and a beacon of cultural richness. It is home to some of the world's most prominent multinational corporations and boasts one of the highest life expectancies. Yet it continues to honor its traditions, a testament to its ability to balance modernity with its rich cultural heritage. From the ancient Jomon period to the bustling modern era, Japan's history is a rich tapestry that continues to fascinate and inspire.